Hello, I'm going to show you how to use Visual Studio 2019 to create a C# application. I just started my Visual Studio 2019. I have created some projects before, so it's suggesting me to open a recent project, and it's also suggesting me that I can get started by following these links. But I'm going to continue without code. And this is the Visual Studio screen I'm seeing right now. As you can see, it's rather blank, and I think it's useful to learn Visual Studio this way. Now, we are going to create a new console application. So go to File, New, Project, and if your screen is not exactly the same as mine, no problem. Okay, so go to Languages, All Languages, select C#, and from All Platforms, drop down, select Windows, and from Project Types, click Console. So this is what you should have selected: C#, Windows, Console. So let's click Next. And you can give it any name you like. I suggest you give a very simple abbreviation to remind you that it's a console application. And I'm going to say ConApp Guess. And this is the default folder. If you want, you can change to another folder. Okay, I'm going to take this folder. I'm going to keep the others the same. As you can see, it says a .NET Framework here. If you want, you can change it to something else. Right now, I'm going to keep it the same as .NET Framework. Let's click Create. Now, you see that the file, a template file for a console application is created for you. And you see there are many things up here. There are many things that we don't need. Okay, for example, these using statements. We don't need all these. What it means is that it's going to assume we are going to use some default libraries and programs. But we are not. Okay, so let's remove the lines that we don't need. The one that we'll be using is just the system. And then the namespace here just tells Visual C# that, hey, this is my folder for my classes and variables. So if you have many programmers working on the same project, later on your programs will be compiling on the same machine, and then this is a kind of virtual folder to keep your classes and programs and variables separate from one another, although they may have the same name. So within an application, there's always a class which is called the program, and within the program class is always the main method, which is where all programs will start. Okay, so here we can insert our lines of code. Why don't we get started by saying hello to the world? Okay, so to write something to the screen, you use console. As you can see, after I've typed a certain number of characters, Visual Studio knows that I'm going to use a console. So the fewer characters you type, the guesses are not so accurate. So I type in more characters, and you can just click console, or you can press the tab key when this is highlighted, and then you press the dot on the keyboard, or the period on the keyboard. Then you get some suggestions. Okay, so I'm going to say console write line. Again, it has correctly guessed what my choices will be. So either you use write or write line. If you use write, everything you write will be printed on the screen, and then the cursor will stay at the end of the line. Okay, if you use write line, then everything you write will be shown on the screen, and then the cursor will be moved to the next line. Okay, right now I use a write line. And tab. and then it is a function, so I have to use the brackets, and just like Java, I have to end my statements with a semicolon. Okay, now you see without the semicolon, Visual Studio knows that there will be an error, and it even suggests that I need a semicolon. So it says CS1002 semicolon expected. So this is a very smart programming environment. And there's a little screwdriver icon here, and it suggests some quick actions for me to correct my code. Okay, you can click it, and then it suggests you how to improve your program. Okay, so no, I'm not going to do this. Okay, I'm going to do it the traditional way. So I fix this error, and of course I have to write out a string, and just like in Java and many other languages, you enclose a string with 3 quotation marks. So hello world, and now let's try it. Okay, now we are ready to run our program. And you can do this by going to the debug menu and then select either start debugging or start without debugging. So in this case, we'll just start debugging. And you can also press the function key F5 instead of clicking it like this. So let me start debugging. Now you can see that the console application did run, but it quickly disappeared. So we need to stop it from disappearing. And the easiest way to do this is to ask for some input from the user. So I'm going to do a console read key. Okay, which means that I will wait for the user to press any key. Okay, so I can add a comment here. Of course, later on, in other applications, you can actually get the value of that key to know which key the user pressed. For now, I just want to stop the program, stop the application from disappearing. So debug, start debugging. Now you see that my application is already running. Hello, and it's waiting for me to press a key. So that's done. The Hello World program is finished. But we are going to do more than that. In order to make you see more code, so I'm going to zoom out a little bit. And now that you know the structure of the program, you don't need all the lines here. Why don't we just start from a console here? Okay, and let's input some more lines. Now let's move up a little bit. And then I'm going to define, because this is a guessing game, so I'm going to define or declare the variable that is going to be guessed. I'm adding a comment here. As you can see, my comment starts with 2 slashes. Okay, again, this is very similar to Java. And this is going to be an integer, so it's int, and then I'm going to say magic number equals 28. Now, as I am typing, you see that there's a kind of a green squiggle line here. If you hover your mouse over it, it just says the variable magic number is assigned, but its value is never used. Okay, so it doesn't matter because we are going to use it. So thank you very much, but we know what we are doing. Okay. And then we are going to greet the user. We are going to say hello to the user, which is what we have already done here. Okay. And I'm going to say, what's your name? And then we are going to get a reply from the user. And the reply from the user is in the form of a string. To get something from the console, again, we are going to do console. And we are going to do a read line. As you can see, coding can be quite quick using Visual Studio. And this method actually returns a string. Okay. Okay, we need to store the value returned by the user in the string. So we type in string. Now note that the S in string starts with a lowercase, and we want to store this in a variable called uname, which stands for username. Okay, okay. Hope this is better for you. And then we are going to not need these lines, and you will see why later. Okay, and then after we got the name, we are going to use it and say it back to the user, again using a write line statement, and we are going to say hi to the user. Now we could have said hi and then plus uname, okay, and semicolon. Now this will work, but a better way is to actually use a placeholder. So let's do it. How about we keep both versions? Okay. Let me write console dot write line, okay, in another line, and then this time we are going to start with the user's name, okay. So this is now you can resize the windows so that you can see the code more clearly. Okay, so it's going to say now this line is wrong because I put a placeholder here, but I do not provide a the variable. Okay, now we'll run and see what will happen. Actually, there's a screwdriver and just suggesting the semicolon. Okay, let's do it. And then we are going to get the input from the user and check whether it's right or wrong. Okay, again, when we get something from the user, we want to store it in a string. So I'm copying this line, and this time it's called uGuess, which is what the user is going to guess. And then this is a string, but later on we are going to compare it to the magic number we defined here. So we need to store it in an integer or convert it into an integer. So I'm going to say, I'm going to define an integer. I'm going to call nGuess, which is the number guessed by the user, which is equal to this int32 class, okay, which is provided by the system. Okay, that's why we need the using statement at the top. So there's a method inside this class which is called pass. As you can see, we want to pass, which means to examine whether this is an integer or not. Okay, actually to convert it into an integer. Okay, so again, it's giving us some kind of warning here, unnecessary assignment of value to nGuess, but let's ignore it for now. We know what we are doing, and then we are going to declare a boolean, and this boolean is going to have the name of guess is wrong. Okay, and and then we're going to say that this thing will get the value of the expression of nGuess not equal to magic number. Now again, you see that Visual Studio knows what the variables we have declared so far. So it's going to suggest, hey, are you going to use magic number? And I'm going to say yes. Thank you very much. Okay. And then I'm going to keep on asking until the user's guess is correct. Okay, so of course I'm going to have a while loop here, and in the while loop I'm going to use that boolean I just defined, and then Just like in Java, I have to use